A new report raises questions about stopping illegal crossings at the U.S.-Mexico border.
It's sort of like jumping into a swimming pool. You don't know whether there's water or not, or you're just going to jump.
Buy safe, buy legal. A new campaign designed to help medical marijuana users.
I'm Tom Fudge in Little Italy. Coming up, you're going to meet a man who led the transformation of this historic neighborhood from a place that looked like it was shutting down to the vibrant place it is today. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. Only about half of the people who illegally enter the U.S. through Mexico were caught last year. Those findings are from an internal Department of Homeland Security report obtained by the Associated Press today. KPBS's Fronteras reporter Jean Guerrero has the story.
The report says 170,000 people illegally entered the U.S. during fiscal year 2015. That's about half of all the people who tried getting in. It's also drastically lower than the 81% success rate claimed by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. I asked the Department of Homeland Security to comment on this report. In an emailed statement, the agency said it has been working to develop new metrics for measuring its activities. They called the report incomplete and a work in progress. The report also shows a huge drop in the number of people who've evaded Border Patrol since 2005, when 1.7 million people got away. So although it suggests captures are not as high as officials have claimed, evasions are at a record low. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
You could call it a legal guidance for medical marijuana. The city attorney is backing a new sticker which allows consumers to tell which medical marijuana facilities have been licensed by the city. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh has the story.
The campaign is called Buy Safe, Buy Legal, and it comes with a burgundy and white sticker, which City Attorney Jan Goldsmith says will tell consumers whether the dispensary is one of 14 medical marijuana facilities already licensed in San Diego. For now, everything else is illegal.
Frankly, we don't know what kind of product they're selling. So it's sort of like if you want to use one of these illegal dispensaries, it's sort of like jumping into a swimming pool. You don't know whether there's water or not, or you're just going to jump.
The city has closed down 300 dispensaries in San Diego and saw charges against another 12 facilities. The logo was actually created by the United Medical Marijuana Coalition, a trade group of legal dispensaries operating in San Diego. Goldsmith says his office would seek charges against any unlicensed dispensary caught using the new logo. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Millions of people in Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina are evacuating their homes before Hurricane Matthew hits the U.S. Atlantic coast. Authorities say this hurricane is the most powerful storm to threaten the East Coast in more than a decade. The storm pummeled through the Caribbean, leaving at least 100 people dead. Many residents are fleeing inland, while others have decided to stay. President Barack Obama has declared a state of emergency for Florida and South Carolina, freeing up federal money and personnel to protect lives and property. For the first time this flu season, someone has died in San Diego from the illness. Health officials say a 73-year-old woman has died from influenza complications. She was not vaccinated and suffered from other medical conditions. Officials say this is one of the earliest deaths from seasonal influenza ever reported in San Diego County. Last flu season, there were 68 flu-related deaths. There was a bomb threat at the state capitol today. Police blocked off roads and sidewalks around the state house for nearly 3 hours, where a suspicious package was found by a CHP officer on patrol. After nearly an hour, it was detonated. The CHP did not give a description of the device, but said that anytime something out of the ordinary is found, it's treated as a real threat. Senate candidate Kamala Harris has picked up 2 big endorsements, one of them from the woman she hopes to replace. Today, Senators Barbara Boxer and Dianne Feinstein both endorsed Harris for Boxer's Senate seat. Boxer had been neutral until now, but in a statement today, she said Harris shares her views on issues ranging from human rights to the environment. Harris and Representative Loretta Sanchez debated for an hour on Wednesday, dueling over topics from crime rates to terrorism, but the U.S. Senate candidate race might be remembered for a pose Sanchez struck at the end. Sanchez capped her debate with a dab. She mimicked the celebrity gesture popularized by NFL star Cam Newton. Harris seemed shocked, then amused.
So there's a clear difference between the candidates in this race.
There definitely is.
And I think the voters will make that decision.
Last night's debate at Cal State Los Angeles was the voters' first and only chance to see the candidates side by side before mail-in ballots begin arriving next week. California voters will be asked to decide on about $3 billion worth of tax measures in November. Many of them are local taxes like Measure A here in San Diego County. Statewide, there are more than 200 local tax measures on the ballot.
Political consultants have advised these local governments and school districts that now is a good time to go out and get taxes because of what they perceive to be a favorable voter turnout this November with the presidential election.
In addition to those local measures, voters will decide whether to extend an income tax on the wealthy and whether to increase California's cigarette tax. The POTUS is heading to San Diego. Later this month, President Barack Obama is set to raise money in La Jolla. People will pay between $10,000 and $33,000 to attend the private event. The president last came to San Diego County a year ago, and with only a few months left in office, this may be his last official visit. The San Diego Planning Commission today opened the door to more housing density in Hillcrest. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen has more.
Well, the commissioners were considering an update to the Uptown Community Plan, which includes Hillcrest, Bankers Hill, and Mission Hills. Now, the general trend in city planning is to increase housing density with the goal of making neighborhoods more walkable and less dependent on cars. But the Uptown Plan would have actually decreased density in several areas. Planning commissioners did not like that idea. They said if the city hopes to solve its affordable housing crisis, it has to increase the housing supply, and increasing the supply means increasing density. The commissioners also heard a presentation from a group of Hillcrest property owners calling themselves the Uptown Gateway Council. They have a plan to greatly increase the allowable density and height limits in a section of that neighborhood. Commissioners liked the idea in principle and asked city staff to give it more attention. Now, as for the Uptown Community Plan update, the commission recommended approving some of it, but getting rid of the neighborhood's barriers to redevelopment. The Planning Commission is just an advisory body, so the ultimate decision is up to the City Council. I'm Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
This weekend, Little Italy in San Diego will host its annual Festa celebration, complete with chalk drawings, a Sicilian swing band, and bocce ball. Little Italy became a model urban village under the guidance of an Italian who was born and raised in San Diego. KPBS's Tom Fudge is in Little Italy to tell us about the story. Tom?
The Festa is a symbol of a community that has been transformed in the 22 years since the Festa celebration began. The man behind that transformation is Marco Lamandri.
And the famous Frank Busalaki.
You could almost say he's the mayor of Little Italy.
Gentlemen,
you see it in the way he greets the guys playing cards along India Street. And you see it in the pride Marco Lamandri shows in the latest neighborhood development, a town plaza now under construction called the Piazza della Famiglia, right next to Washington Elementary School and Our Lady of the Rosary Church.
this whole thing becomes a 10,000 square foot piazza. Mm-hmm. So we want to do events, we do them here. Yeah. We do the mercato, the farmer's market will be done here every Sunday. When we do the chalk drawings on the Festa, the chalk drawings will be done here. Mm-hmm. So this really becomes In a lot of ways, we say the civic center of Little Italy. Central Piazza, business district, church, and the school.
It's the center of town.
It's the center of town.
Lamandry isn't really the mayor. He's the president of New City America, a company that has managed the affairs of Little Italy since the 1990s. By the 90s, the neighborhood had changed from being an Italian immigrant enclave of tuna fishermen and their families to a place on the edge of downtown with not much going on.
Outside of the 13 to 15 Italian businesses that were left, Little Italy, for all intents and purposes, was the parking lot to service downtown office buildings.
Local property owners working with Lamandry wanted to change that. In the beginning, he said their goals were modest.
You know, our first goal was just to get trash cans. I mean, we had, in the 48 square blocks of Little Italy, we had one trash can. So we had no trash cans, we had no mechanism for sweeping sidewalks and picking up trash, we had no trees.
But redevelopment was going strong downtown, and a lot of the old Italian families still own their property in Little Italy.
As the fishing industry succeeded and people made money, a lot of the families that lived here in the smaller homes moved to Point Loma, they moved to Mission Hills. So that's where the people that made it went, but they kept their property.
Now there are trees in Little Italy. They created a community benefit district to raise money. On India Street, they calmed traffic by narrowing the street from 3 lanes to 2. Parallel parking changed to angle parking. They got trash cans, they got a big investment in the restaurant trade, and they got housing. Lots of multi-story housing.
I could point to nearly every condo complex in Little Italy, and it was previously a parking lot.
The vision for Little Italy and for the Piazza della Famiglia can be seen as universal, even historic.
Just like New England towns, they were all built around the commons. You know, this is the way cities used to be built, was around central plazas. This will be our central plaza.
What Mayor Lamandry seems to be saying is, if you think the festa is good this year, wait until you see it next year in the Piazza della Famiglia. Construction on the piazza is finished in April. I'm Tom Fudge, reporting from Little Italy.
One of the men who helped bring the Chargers to San Diego has died. George Pernicano was the minority owner of the team back in 1961. People knew him by his handlebar mustache. Pernicano was also a local restaurant owner. Current team owner Dean Sapanos says Pernicano was a San Diego institution. He was 98 years old. San Diego County may have too many hospital beds, meaning thousands of beds are empty. The fear is this could be an incentive for doctors to admit more patients and perform unnecessary procedures. iNews Source reporter Cheryl Clark analyzed the California Healthcare Foundation report. I sat down with her a bit earlier to discuss her findings. So Cheryl, this report finds that San Diego County has more hospital beds than it needs. What did you find?
This was a report from a very reputable California Healthcare Foundation called, they called it Beds for Boomers. And it basically says that San Diego County right now has 1,500 more beds than we'll need by 2020 and about 700 more beds than we'll need by 2030. But here's the thing, the report really underestimated the gap because it didn't include all of our military beds. We've got hundreds of military beds and VA beds. It also didn't factor in the fact that we have 2 new hospitals going up in San Diego County. Kaiser Medical Center is going to be opening in April, and the new UCSD Medical Center's Jacobs.
So what's the significance when it comes to the subject of the year 2040?
Well, that was just happened to be the date that the report's authors looked at the need. So what they basically did was they looked at our demographics. They looked at, how many senior citizens will we have here in San Diego by the year 2030 and year 2040? What is the expected insurance situation, status of these patients? How sick will they be? And that's how they factored in.
So what's the implication of having thousands more hospital beds than needed?
Well, this could exert a bunch of pressures. First of all, you need to keep the lights on, so you need to bring in more patients to fill those beds so you have a revenue stream. What has happened, what Chris Van Gorder has pointed out, he's the CEO of the Scripps Health System. What happened in about 15 years ago was that a number of hospitals closed because there weren't enough patients to fill them.
And you talked to officials in the healthcare community locally. What are they saying? Do they agree that San Diego County has more beds than needed?
Well, interestingly enough, most of the hospital the executives of hospitals that have new buildings going up do not agree that we are overbedded. But Chris Van Gorder, as I mentioned, is very concerned about the implications to the region's hospital market.
So to be fair, the hospital executives that disagree, how do they explain the need for these beds that are not filled?
Well, they don't think they won't be filled. They feel that maybe there will be enough new technologies that will bring more patients to hospitals. Maybe they feel that we will attract patients from outside the region to come to San Diego for their care. I think also a lot of hospital planning was done a long time ago. The blueprints were set a long time ago. The money was raised a long time ago and approved way before the Affordable Care Act came into being, which set these new standards.
Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next News Hour, where the presidential candidates stand and differ on the issue of guns. That's Thursday on the PBS News Hour.
Operation Boo will be in effect in California this Halloween season. It puts registered sex offenders under a curfew from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. on Halloween night. They also have to turn off their outdoor lights so trick-or-treaters don't go to their houses, and they can't put up Halloween decorations or give out candy. But the state has done away with the requirement for do not disturb signs. One sex offender sued that part of Operation Boo, saying it made it easier for people to target sex offenders. California will tighten rules on how much farmers can use a common pesticide. The change doesn't ban the pesticide alone, but it creates a uniformed rule for its application each year. The rule is drawing criticism from farmers who call it a key way to fight pests and fear the crackdown could lead to rising food prices. The Weather Service has canceled a fire watch warning. Clear skies and sunshine are in the forecast for San Diego this weekend. Regina Miller has more.
Well, we have some pretty quiet weather conditions here across the southwestern U.S. Not really even seeing any bands of clouds here across California. And for tonight, we have a clear sky, an overnight low of 62 degrees in the metro areas. Taking a look in through San Diego County, we'll see an overnight low of 57 in Borrego Springs. In Mount Laguna, we'll be at 44 degrees. Clear skies there. Oceanside at 49 degrees. And in Poway, we'll be at 50 degrees for your overnight low. Taking a look at some of the conditions heading into your Friday, we're going to see warmer conditions, and not only interior places like the Four Corners, but then we'll also see it through Nevada and then extending out to the coastline with plenty of sunshine. That's going to be the case right as we head through the weekend. We could see maybe some showers or storms around Arizona and New Mexico, but not really much going on across California. So taking a look at your coastal areas, you can see how temperatures are going to be nice and warm here. Sun with some clouds mixing in, 87 degrees for Friday. Saturday we get to 88, and then a little bit cooler and more comfortable as we go into your Sunday at 83, 81 for Monday, and then we're back to 77 for Tuesday. Inland areas will be at 93 and rather windy here for your Friday, and we'll have sunshine, very warm on Saturday as well and on Sunday, but then we will see it becoming a little bit cooler as we go into the early part of next week. In the mountain areas, windy conditions, temperature of 74 degrees. We will be watching for fire hazards here because that's going to be a problem with the windy conditions. That's going to continue on Saturday, 76 degrees. Mostly sunny on Sunday at 79 also on Monday, and then we're 76 by Tuesday. In the desert locations, we're at 91 degrees and windy for Friday. It's also going to be windy on Sunday, or Saturday, I should say. Temperature of 93 degrees, 96, and mostly sunny and warm. As we go into your Sunday, we'll see temperatures in the upper 90s. Also on Monday, Tuesday, we're at 96, mostly sunny, still hot. I'm Regina Miller, KPBS News.
The benefits of music therapy have been documented in the U.S. since about 1950. Advocates say it's a healing distraction. KTCS brings us the story of a musical therapist who works with sick children.
Hello, hello. All right, are we ready to make some music? My name is Betsy Hartman, and I'm a board-certified music therapist. I've been practicing for four plus years. Should we do improvisation or we just make up our own song? Alistair is a 4-year-old little girl. She's been at the hospital in and out for most of her life, or half of her life. She is incredibly spunky and has moved here from Montana. So she's here with her mom while her dad and her sister are back home, and she's receiving her treatment. My family were musicians, and growing up they always encouraged me to be involved with music and play instruments. But it wasn't until I saw a harpist playing when I was a little girl, and I thought, that's an instrument that I want to play when I grow up. And as I started playing it, I realized that it had an effect on people, whether it helped people relax or soothe people. Okay, here's your cat piano. So I find that with cancer patients, we use music in two main ways. I might be using it to help with some of their rehabilitation goals. When you feel so sick and you have so much medicine that you're taking, you're exhausted and you might not have the motivation to want to move, and it might hurt, it might be painful to move, and so music can be used as a support to increase that motivation, to make moving fun. Oh my gosh! Sometimes they don't need to move and they just need to relax, but they're going through a really hard time in life. They're missing school and they're missing their friends and they're missing their routine, and so that's emotionally exhausting, and maybe we'll use music then to help them be aware of that and express some of their feelings around that through songwriting.
Sitting in the chemo room, I made you go boom, boom, boom. I'm leaving here so soon, soon, soon.
This was a piece by a teen that was going through cancer treatment and used her raps as a way of expressing what was going on for her.
Helps me cope when I'm being poked with a needle from chemo.
Music therapy practice in the United States was first kind of recognized in the 50s. That was when the National Association of Music Therapy was established. But music therapy work has been going on here for a long time.
You do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around.
Music is processed really throughout the brain.
Oh, I like that one.
And not only throughout the cortex, but also deep in the brain. I mean, our cerebellum is involved in rhythmic processing, and some really interesting studies are being done about how music can change the brain. And they were seeing that dopamine was released when listening to music that was pleasant, that was found to be pleasant and enjoyable.
You want to start with that? Twinkle, twinkle, little star. The nature of being in the hospital is following rules and getting things done to you to help you feel better. What you are. For kids, that's hard. For adults, that's hard. And as a music therapist, we can really come alongside them and meet them where they're at. If they need choices, we can give them choices and let them choose an instrument. And it's a simple choice, but it's a choice. Up, then we go down. But I wonder
what you are.
Yay! That was beautiful. You did it. High five. You're a rock star.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, 2 candidates from opposing parties are running for San Diego City Attorney. We'll look at how they're distinguishing themselves or not. And on Midday Edition, we'll learn what's going on in San Diego for the weekend. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio starting at 5 a.m. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.